Our next speaker is Rachel Romrell, who was a college student at Utah Valley University. She comes a long way to be a part of this club. She is studying psychology and international studies. Her interest in and love for people throughout her life has motivated her time and again to learn to adopt the good and drop the bad in herself in accordance with many good examples. She is on speech number 5, the nickel speech. Her objectives are to use stance, movement, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact to express her message and achieve her speech's purpose. She's to use body language and make it smooth and natural. It's 5 to 7 minutes in length, and her title is Acting on Impressions. Let's welcome Rachel.
I want to share with you a story that will forever be so close to my heart. It's when I heard it, it was something that impacted me in the moment, and it's something that will forever impact me. It will always be something that I'll look back on and hope to emulate in my life. The story is about a woman named Diane. Diane was like any one of us. I mean, you guys are pretty interesting people, but Diane in particular was a very normal person. So she was a lot more like me. She lived a very normal life. She did very normal things. She had very normal chores. One day, while Diane was living her normal life in Idaho, she received a phone call at her Idaho home. But the news wasn't good at all. Diane learned that her college daughter, who was in Utah, had passed away. And Diane, of course, was devastated by the phone call. She was devastated, just like any mother would be. But soon she found herself in her daughter's college dorm room, organizing her things, packing her things away. And as she was going through this really extremely emotional time for her, a picture fell out of one of her daughter's journals. And the picture was of a really young girl from India. She had this big, bright smile. And Diane was, first, what a cute little girl, but Diane had no idea who this was. She was a little confused by it until she found the accompanying letter that came with it. Turns out that her daughter Lisa had been supporting this little girl in India at an orphanage for the past several months. And the letter was from the little girl to Lisa thanking her for her support. Diane, of course, in this extremely emotional time was deeply impressed by this, and she was very touched that her daughter would show this compassion to a young girl that she didn't know in a country she'd never been to. So Diane decided that instead of flowers or donations to the family, she would ask the people attending Lisa's funeral to instead donate to this orphanage in India, because she felt like that would be a good way to pay homage to her daughter and her daughter's charitable nature. So that funeral came and it went. And weeks later, Diane received another phone call. But this one was from India. And she was shocked to find that it was from that orphanage that they had donated all this money to. The person on the other line of the phone told Diane that they had just received the biggest donation they had ever received from Diane and the people who had donated. Diane was shocked. She wasn't intending to be pointed out when she made this donation. She was just trying to, pay homage to her daughter. She was further shocked when the person on the other line asked her if she would join the board of directors for this orphanage in India. Diane, of course, she's a normal person. She's never been to India. She's never had any reason to be there. She's unfamiliar with the culture, with the people, and so she, of course, is a little hesitant in accepting this. So she decides, after talking to her husband, that she's going to take a trip to India and meet these people and get to know the culture and see what this orphanage is like, see where she can help these people. So, this very normal woman ends up on a very long plane ride to India. This little chain of events start leading her in this direction. She goes to India, and she's shocked. You know, on her drive there, she starts being just touched by the surroundings. She's never been in a circumstance like this. She's never seen poverty to this degree. And she's from Idaho. So when she saw this type of environment, these type of people trying to make it, she was very unsettled. By the time she got to the orphanage, she was definitely ready to go to work. She wanted to help these people. She wanted to be involved. She met a guy named Yash, and Yash showed her all around the orphanage, and Diane was very pleased, but kind of, you know, she was pleased to find out that this orphanage was doing very well, that the children were really well fed, that the orphanage was well maintained, that the orphanage was even being provided for very, very well. In fact, it was one of the best in India. So Diane was a little let down, not that they were being provided for, but because she didn't know how she was going to be able to help them. And she decides that while she's in India, while I'm here, she decides that she's going to go and meet the people and see where else she might be of service. Because that was her intent the whole time anyway. So she asked Yash to bring her around and to get to know the culture, get to know the people. And she finds herself asking Yash about all these beggars that she's seeing in the slums. She's seeing lots and lots of people who, again, are in circumstances she's never seen before, and in a degree of poverty that she's never witnessed. So Yash explains to her that these are most likely untouchables. And this is a name that the people had given this class because they weren't to be touched, they weren't to be looked at. These are people who most likely had some relation, whether they were directly or indirectly related to leprosy or had some connection to leprosy. And these people and their families are now outcasts. And in the culture's religion, it was believed that these people had lived a really, really terrible life in their past existence. And now that they were reincarnated, this was kind of their punishment, that they lived in this class and that they would be punished in this way. And Diane, of course, coming from a completely different culture with a completely different perspective, sees how wrong this is and is so powerfully influenced by it. She just finds herself thinking about it over and over again. She goes and she visits these other orphanages with Yash, and Yash shows her around, and she finds that none of these orphanages will allow the children of the untouchables to even come in. So all these people are left to forage on their own. Now, the long story short, this one woman from Idaho ends up falling impression after impression. Impression after impression. After a long road, she decides that she's going to move her own orphanage. And she's going to provide a home for these children who had no home. She decides that they have no education, so she builds a school for them. The school is such it's a beautiful education. She finds the best teachers. That it turns out that the people whose cultural, rules tell them not to intermingle with the untouchables start bringing their children to her school with the untouchables. They start intermingling. She starts changing things by acting on simple impressions. Dan starts working with the president's daughter, and she gets to a place where she gets all the dignitaries, all the leaders of the country in the same room with her children. These bright-eyed, beautiful children who were social outcasts. Each dignitary walked in and wouldn't even look them in the eye, sat down coldly in their seats and watched the performance. And song by song, the children started changing their hearts. Because they're children. By the end of the song, by the end of the performance, all of them were in tears. Each of them came up to the stage personally and thanked each child giving them unprecedented handshakes and hugs when they weren't even supposed to touch them. They weren't even supposed to look at them. This story impacted me so much. That such a simple woman could make such a huge difference. I know that each of us have felt that weight, like that feeling that we want to change the world, but we don't know how. And that we feel like it's unreachable, that it's not possible. But I promise you that if you start acting on the small things, all Diane did was send a donation. All she did was ask a simple favor of the people around her at first. But that led her to bigger and bigger things. That led her to change a whole culture. I promise you that we can do that if we start listening to impressions.